Okay. So now we're going on to Exodus 19. Very exciting. I feel like we're learning something here. Like sometimes I feel like I go through stages where I'm a little bit confused and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be teaching. And then I get into another one and it feels like it's going good. And like I feel like this is the point, but I'm sure other people are much better teachers and make better points because I've been reading my Bible a long time, but you have to read it a long, long time, and you have to be, of course, gifted by God with your eyes open and your ears open to understand the lesson. We've learned that already when He opens up people's hearts and He opens up their, and remember, He can close them too. He can close them. He did that with Pharaoh, right? In the 3rd month after the children of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on the same day they came to the wilderness in Sinai. For they had departed from Rephidim, had come to the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness. So Israel camped there before the mountain of Mount Sinai, right? In the wilderness of Sinai. And Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. He said, he brought them to him, to God. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice, and that's the voice inside you. That's the truth inside you. We all know the difference between good and evil, and we all know truth and non-truth. And keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. So he's telling us, one second. So he's telling us all the earth is his. And see, that's really also very difficult to get through to people because everything on this earth is created by God. And even if we created ourselves, He put the stuff here for the making of anything that we make. Now, some people make things for good and some people make things for evil. But it doesn't matter because when you die, it stays right on this planet. The only thing you get to take with you is your soul. And you do have a decision where your soul's going to go. And it doesn't matter if you live in the west or the east or the north or the south, whatever hemisphere you live in. This belongs to God and it will stay here. And people will work their whole lives to acquire of much of these things, right? That they can, and they get these things. And some people are granted these things by God, and others acquire them through not so good means. But it doesn't matter how you get them, you're not going to get to keep them. They're not going to be yours. Let's see. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests. Let me read that last thing again so I can continue reading because I interrupted it. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. So Israel did keep that covenant, didn't they? We already know that for 40 years they ate manna and they kept the covenant with God. And he said that they're going to be a special people. And he said, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. So he said, this is what you're going to tell the children of Israel. So Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before them all these words which the Lord commanded him. Then all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. So Moses brought back the words of the people to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, I come to you in the thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. So Moses told the words of the people to the Lord. Then the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. You shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, take heed to yourselves that you do not go up to the mountain or touch its base. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. Not a hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot with an arrow. Whether man or beast, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come near the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day. Do not come near your wives. Then it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunderings and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain, and the sound of the trumpet was very loud, so that all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. And a lot of people will say when the big thunderstorms and stuff like that come is that God must be angry, right? And showing his anger through the weather. But I think that he was just using the weather that day, or rather, he said he was going to come in a dark cloud, and then we know that it came with lightnings and thunders. And I think he was just using that weather to show that he was there, and that it was more than they had ever seen before, and they were trembling in fear. And Moses brought people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was completely in smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. And when the blast of the trumpet sounded long and became louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by voice. Then the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. So they didn't see the Lord. They heard the Lord, right? And they saw his power and his might as he descended on this mountain in the smoke and the lightning and the thunder, right? But they saw God. I mean, they saw him in this, I don't want to say form, but he spoke to them. Just like he has ascended when he spoke before, and he was the fire in the bush, but the bush wasn't burning, right? Then the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai. Okay. And the Lord said to Moses, Then the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And the Lord said to Moses, go down and warn the people, lest they break through to gaze at the Lord, and many of them perish. In case they got curious and just wanted to see the Lord, which I could understand that. And he knew it too, right? There's a lot of very courageous people. There's a lot of very curious people. That's how God made us, some of us. And of course, they were with this group. And of course, there's always going to be those that are like, Also, let the priests who come near the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. But Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, set bounds around the mountain and consecrate it. Then the Lord said to him, Away, get down, and then come up, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and spoke to them. So we're going to go ahead and read 20 because it's only 10 minutes. Let's see. I'm trying to make the Old Testament lessons a little bit shorter. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So he said, do not make carved images, right? You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. So he said he even visits those children for 3 and 4 generations of those people that hate him. In other words, they have to deal with that sin of their fathers, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love and keep my commandments. So now we're going to say, this is like the Buddha things, the churches, how they make these priests and these certain things in the churches that people pray to, the Mother Mary and all of this stuff. He tells you don't make this stuff, right? And people do it because they haven't read their Bible themselves. A lot of people read doctrines, right? Or they go to church and they listen to what they're told and what they're raised in. But if you read this book, you'll know you better not bow down to no handmade idols. There is one God, and he isn't going to show up as an idol. And remember, he says he even visits those children for third and fourth generations who hate him. You shall not take. So when you hear people say that they don't believe in God, or say words mean against God, they are really messing with their future generations. They think they're going to put all this money in the bank, or they can say all this mean stuff, and this is what they need to have and teach. It's a shame. It really is sad. Because the other people didn't do anything to deserve it. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. So when we say bad words with God in it, he says it right here in this Bible. And he said, will not hold him guiltless. So all the people who do this, constantly, every day, over and over. I mean, just asking for it. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of your Lord your God. In it you shall do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in the 6 days the Lord has made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested for the 7th day. He also needed rest. And I have been so guilty of this, so guilty. I have worked and worked and worked and worked. And I have worked 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30 days in a row. In fact, I've worked more than 30 days in a row. And it's funny because I never had anything to show for it in the end. It was just always getting by. And that was simply out of the love of Jesus because of my stupidity and my hard-headedness. Oh, hold on one second here. So he rested. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So you can't lie against your neighbor. And your neighbor, who is your neighbor? Well, we learn, Jesus tells us who our neighbor is in the New Testament. But when you are following God's word, you don't bear false witness. You don't lie about people to get your way and to manipulate, or just to be mean and cruel, which some people do. So murder is different than someone being put to death. Murdering someone is killing someone out of your own, it can be greed or lust or whatever it is, but you're not to murder people. That's not the same as fighting a war with two lands that are struggling to keep peace in their own land. That's not murdering. That's fighting in a war, which we see all through the Bible. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. So what does covet mean, right? Let's look it up. It's just easier. To desire wrongfully, inordinately, or without due regard for the rights of others. Anyways, you get the idea. You can look it up more if you want to know more. But so you're not supposed to obsess on their things, and you can admire what they have, of course. That's our nature, to admire things that people have created and organized and built, and their style and all of that stuff, right? But you're not supposed to covet it, And if your neighbor has a particularly beautiful husband or a particularly beautiful wife, you could look at this person, we know they're beautiful, and you can admire them. But that doesn't mean that you get to obsess on them. That is horrible for you. It will make you sick. Now all the people witnessed the thundering and lightning flashes and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, and when the people saw it, they trembled and stood afar. Then they said to Moses, "You speak with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die." And Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for God has come to test you, and that his fear may be before you, so that you may not sin." So he wanted them to fear it so they didn't sin. They didn't look up that mountain, but that they also followed his words. So the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make anything to be with me, gods of silver or gods of gold. You shall not make for yourself." So he said, do not make these things, right? Do not make these gods out of these things. "An altar of earth you shall make for me. You shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I record my name, I will come to you and I will bless you. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone, for if you use tool on it, you have profaned it. Nor shall you go up by the steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it." So you don't go up. Okay, first of all, let's see what hewn stone is. Well, there's a lot to read here. Okay, so they say the Hall of Hewn Stones was the meeting place of the Sanhedrin during the Second Temple period. The Talmud deduces that it was built in the north wall of blah, blah, blah. But we're talking, if you go to the cultured stone, what is hewn stone? The cultured stone. Hewn stone brings the chic solemnity of castle work to modern architecture with rough textures and smooth colors. But it's not that strong stone, like what they actually built castles with. And when it says the spiritual meaning of hewn, is signified that which is from self-intelligence of the following passage. For as much as you trampled upon the worn one, and seized from him the burden of wheat, ye have built houses of hewn stone, but you will not dwell in them. Because this stone was not strong enough, right? And so he said, don't build it on hewn stone. And then, but it was also because you have profaned it. If you use a tool on it, you have profaned it. So what was special about this stone that it could not be broken? Anyways, he just says don't do it. You can read all about hewn stone if you're interested. I'm not going to, because it's already 22 minutes. Okay, so, but look it up and see what you think. But he did not want it profaned, the altar, and he said, if you use a tool on the hewn stone, you have profaned it. And he also said, you don't go, now nor shall you go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. So he says, don't go up there if your nakedness cannot be exposed. And in nakedness, a lot in the Bible, and this is the end of this, and we'll read 21 tomorrow or whenever, that you want to be able to completely be cleansed and completely clean, like he said, make them take a bath, because a lot of people in the Bible, you will see that they stripped naked because they were so overcome by the glory of God, which is how we were made at first, right? It doesn't mean you walk around naked. All these people are wearing clothes even back then. There were only two, Adam and Eve, that were at first naked. And then after that, everybody wore clothes and they covered themselves properly. But anyways, we'll read more later. Have